Kasparov versus Ligterink Malta Olympiad 1980, and it's white to play and win. I have not seen this position before, so I'm going to try to solve this problem. It's supposed to be a difficult problem and not one you can easily solve, so I'm going to try to solve it and also explain to you my thought process as I'm trying to solve this one. So alright, if I look at this position, I see that material is even, at least the major pieces. Let's count the pawns: 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5 6. So black has an extra pawn in this position, and white has an excellent initiative as far as I can see, because black's pieces are horribly placed, and also a lot of the pieces are unprotected. For example, this rook on e8, it's not protected. This rook on a7 is not protected. This queen on a5 is okay. The queen doesn't really need that much protection, but it is not protected, whereas all of white's pieces are protected. That's the first thing I noticed. The other thing I notice is, of course, I see bishop takes h7 already in the position, and the king here is pretty lonely. And if, let's say, bishop takes h7, king takes, then I could take on f7 and attack that loose rook and create some pressure on this on black's king here. That's another thing I see. I could even play a move like queen f5 maybe and pressure h7, but then he could go g6 and stop that. So I'm not so sure queen f5 does anything. I don't see any immediate way to attack this guy who's loose, because if bishop c6 and knight takes, although I do see that if this knight moves, that knight on b8 is under fire from my rook, although it is protected by this rook here on e8. His queen does not have many squares. Well, okay, queen can go to a3, a2, maybe the queen can go to c3, but that's about it. So that's something I should note. What else do I see? My rook on f1 is not playing, but the fact that it's safe on f1 allows this rook to do whatever it wants to do, because there is no queen e1 check in the position thanks to this rook on f1. So my king's extremely safe. So I have 1 2 3 three pieces I can use for a possible assault on his lonely king here on the king side. So bishop h7 is the immediate move that comes to my mind. Let's see if there's anything else that I see before I start calculating bishop h7. Wow, immediately I see a possibility of knight c8 attacking. So knight c8 attacking this rook, and the point is, if he takes, then I play queen f5, threatening queen h7 and mate, and I'm also threatening that rook on c8. So it's a double attack. He cannot prevent both threats. In fact, I think that's just lost if knight c8 is played. So that's an interesting possibility. Knight c8 attacking that rook, and it does not have many squares to go. The other thing that knight c8 does is that it interferes with this rook's defense of the knight. So not only does knight c8 attack the rook on a7, it opens up my rook on b1 on this knight on b8. That's a huge move. I don't see how black gets out of that. Knight c8, that looks like a great move. So I don't even want to look at bishop takes h7 because that seems a little bit unclear to me. Bishop h7, king h7, and queen takes f7. And if he plays a move like rook f8, how are my pieces coming into the attack? I just don't see it. But knight c8 looks really good. Knight c8. And how does he solve the problem of that rook on a7? Not only is the rook on a7 threatened, but the knight on b8 is also threatened, so he's got to watch that. Could that be it? Knight c8, and then rook takes c8, but queen f5 as we saw, and then what? Queen f5, threatening queen h7 and queen h8 mate. What would black play as a defense? Knight c8. I think that's the winning move. I'm just going to take my time here as though it's a real tournament game and I have the time to calculate and make the move. So I just don't want to guess and play knight c8 because it looks winning unless I have a reasonable certainty that I've calculated some important variations and I know it's winning. And I do think knight c8 is winning, but I'm still gonna play it as though it's a real tournament game, and I have easily got an hour on the clock or more. So I'm just gonna take my time. So knight c8, and what are his possibilities? Wow, I see an interesting possibility of bishop g5. So knight c8 and bishop g5, attacking my queen. And you may say, what does that do? Well, the point here is that if I play queen takes g5, then rook takes here, yes, and then queen f5, and then the point is that he has created this flight square e7 for his king, so there is no mate, so he can probably just rescue his rook and play a move like rook e8, allow me to take on h7. I can take king f8, queen h8 check, king e7, queen takes g7. Okay, I win 2 pawns for 2 extra pawns on the king side. That's a winning position as far as I can tell. And if knight c8, if queen f5, then he can simply play g6, so that doesn't do anything. Knight c8, bishop g5. Can I play anything else? Queen f5 is just met by g6, and then queen takes g5, rook takes c8, and that's not going anywhere. So knight c8, bishop g5, queen takes g5. Can you play rook takes e4? No, because a7 is hanging. Can he play a move like f6 or h6? No, because if h6, then I can play queen g4 and I defend both my bishop on e4 and the knight on c8. If f6, then I play bishop d5 with check, saving my bishop, and then I can move my queen or do whatever I want. That's not gonna work. So knight c8. Bishop g5. What else do I see? Bishop g5, queen takes g5, and I saw rook c8 doesn't work because of queen f5. Oh, there's another move I haven't considered at all, which is knight c8 and then rook c7. I didn't notice that at all. The point there is if rook takes b8, then he's planning to take my knight on c8 with rook takes c8, either rook. But even then, don't I simply have rook takes c8, and then queen f5, attacking the rook and also threatening queen takes h7 mate? I still have that. So that shouldn't be a problem for me. Knight c8, rook c7, rook takes b8. And then I'm also threatening knight takes e7 check. So he doesn't have time to make an intermediate move. And knight c8, what else do I see? Bishop g5, I saw queen takes g5 and there is nothing. Rook takes e4, rook takes b8. Queen c7. That can't work. Knight takes a7 simply. Then queen takes b8. But then I play knight c6 and I rescue my knight, don't I? Yeah, because I can play queen d8 check next. Knight c8, bishop g5, queen takes g5. Rook c7. I can probably even play queen h4 in that position and allow him to play a move like g6 or h6 and then play knight c6, saving my knight. So I don't see that. Not knight c6, I'm sorry. Knight rook takes b8. And I protected my bishop on e4. Wait. Yeah, because I want an extra piece. So I'm gonna play it because I don't see how black survives. Okay, so one last thing I see is knight c8, rook d7. Rook takes b8 and then rook d to d8. So knight c8, knight c8, and then rook d7, and I take, and then he plays rook from here to here, pinning my knight on c8 to my rook on b8. Can that work? No, it cannot, because I have knight takes e7 with check. so that doesn't do anything. Okay, I think I'm deciding to play knight c8, so let's see. Let me see Kasparov's game and see what he played in that position without seeing the whole solution. Let's see what his opponent played. Kasparov did play knight c8, okay, and his opponent played knight c6, a completely unexpected move. Wow. His opponent played... Wait, what happened here? Sorry, knight c8 is the right move. His opponent played knight c6, completely unexpected move, but I thought that you could simply take on a7 here, and that's you win the exchange. His point, of course, is that if you take here, then he takes here, and he's regained his piece and he's saved his rook, and there's no immediate attack. So okay, knight c6 on the board, not a move that I saw, but nevertheless pretty interesting. Now I could play knight takes a7. I mean, that's winning an exchange. I think that's just crushing, because knight takes a7, knight takes a7, and then rook b7, and then bishop takes h7. I think that should be too much for anyone to resist. Knight takes a7, and now the knights lose on a7, so I'm thinking knight takes a7, the obvious move. Then he plays here, and then what? Then I'm still thinking of ideas like bishop takes h7 check, king takes, and queen takes f7, and then I'm attacking his rook, so he has to play a move like queen a4, defending that rook on e8. He's just barely hanging in there. Then I play rook b7, attacking the bishop on e7. He plays knight c8, defending that bishop. Okay, so far so good. And where is my killer blow? So we have someone here watching live, Electro Knights. Hi, hope you're enjoying this live broadcast. I'm solving a study here, not a study, but it's a real game. Kasparov versus, I think his opponent's name is Ligterink. And if you're just joining, I found the first move, the correct move, knight c8, and then Ligterink played knight c6, and now I'm considering taking the exchange and then playing something like bishop takes h7 check. And I'm approaching this like it's a tournament game, so I'm taking my time to solve this. So knight takes a7, knight takes a7, and what after that? I could take on h7, king takes, queen takes f7, but then queen a4, and I don't see a follow-up. After rook b7, he goes knight c8, and he just barely holds everything together. Bishop h7, king h7, queen e4. Okay, but then he goes back to g8, and what's my follow-up? Maybe rook b7, queen c6, but then there is a knight on, so you're saying bishop h7 in this position. So bishop h7, king takes h7, queen e4 check, king g8. Okay, so let's see. So chess bold's idea is bishop h7, whoops. Bishop h7, king h7, queen e4 check, king g8, queen takes c6, and now we threaten both the rook on e8 and the rook on a7 with the knight. That seems like an interesting idea, but then he plays rook takes c8, doesn't he? And then queen takes c8, and then king h7, and then he has a rook and a bishop for my two rooks. How's that different from playing knight takes a7 and just winning the exchange directly? Maybe it grabs an extra pawn. So that's a possibility. Free pawn and exposed king maybe. But yeah, exposed king, but we don't have any minor pieces left to attack the exposed king. Bishop h7, king h7, queen e4, queen takes c6, rook takes c8, queen takes c8 check, king h7, and then rook b8 maybe. Rook b8. That might do it. So the same line that we saw with bishop h7 all the way to takes on c6, and then takes here, king h7, and rook b8. That might be the killer blow. Or, oh, okay, I could play queen f5 check, king g8, and then rook b8 check, bishop f8, and then queen c8, and the bishop's also lost. So that actually might be a good variation. Bishop h7, if he goes king h8, then, well, first of all, you can simply take here on a7, then knight takes, and queen takes f7. That's two extra pawns, one for nothing. So that's just easily winning. So king h8 is not an option. King f8 could be played, maybe, but then we've won an extra pawn already, and then knight takes a7, winning the exchange as usual. Okay. Bishop h7, king f8, knight takes a7, knight takes, and I've won a free pawn for nothing. Plus I can play a move like rook b7, adding the pressure, and then bishop g6 next move. Actually, that might be crushing. Bishop h7, king f8, knight takes a7, knight takes a7, and then rook b7 attacking the knight on a7. And he plays knight c8, forced. Then I play bishop g6, so I'm looking at this. Bishop h7, king f8, knight takes a7, knight takes a7, rook b7, knight c8, and then I play bishop g6 because the pawn is pinned to the king, and he cannot defend it. Well, oh, he can play queen a2. He can play queen a2 though. Okay, maybe so, but that still looks still looks a promising position to me. Bishop h7, I've won a pawn for nothing. Whereas if I play knight takes a7 first, then he takes rook b7, he goes knight c8, Oops. Okay, bishop h7 looks good. Bishop h7, king h7 doesn't work as we saw. Queen e4 check and takes on c6, and that's GG. What else? So he has to play king f8, but then that's an extra pawn lost for nothing. And then I take on a7, knight takes a7, and then I play rook b7, just adding the pressure, knight c8. And what next? Maybe I can play bishop f5, after that. Wow, bishop f5, really? So bishop h7, king f8, knight takes, rook b7, whoops, rook b7, knight c8, and then bishop to f5, attacking that knight, and not just attacking the knight but threatening to deflect this rook and grab this piece on e7. And that's no, I can't grab the piece on e7, the king's on f8. But bishop f5 threatens to play bishop to e6. That's a strong possibility in the position. Or he could play queen takes a2. I think I may be overthinking this, because bishop h7 wins a pawn for nothing, and then knight takes rook, you won the exchange. So it's better than playing knight takes rook first and not winning anything. Just want to make sure that... Oh, by the way, bishop d5, I didn't even see it. Bishop d5. Does that make a difference? Oh, okay, so let's see, wait. Knight takes first, sorry. Knight takes first, then knight takes, and then bishop d5, threatening f7. How does he protect that? He could play rook f8, sure, but then I have rook b7, and both a7 and e7 are hanging. Oh, then he goes knight c8. He goes knight c8 after that, protecting e7. But bishop d5 looks interesting. It's at least worth a shot. Well, the move I haven't considered is bishop takes c6, because seems obvious that he will play rook takes c8, and then there's nothing, is there? Because I can play bishop d5, but then he simply plays bishop f6 and protects f7. And what if I play bishop d5 now? If I play bishop d5 now, then he could play rook takes c8, and queen takes f7 is not mate because he can play king h8, and I don't see a follow-up. Actually, I could play bishop takes c6 there, but then he doesn't have to take on c6. Knight takes a7, knight takes, bishop d5, rook f8, rook b7, knight c8. Bishop h7 starting to look much nicer now. But I didn't see bishop d5 before, so that looks nice. It looks enticing, definitely. Another move I haven't considered is knight takes d6. Knight takes d6, attacking the rook on e8, and also attacking f7. So he has to take bishop takes d6, and then queen takes d6. But then what have I achieved? I've just won a pawn. He doesn't have to play rook takes e4. Why not bishop d5? Because he goes rook f8, and then after knight takes a7, I don't see a follow-up. If rook b7, then knight c8. Knight c8 after rook b7. It's definitely a dominant position, but I just don't see how white breaks through. Now I know why this is a puzzle in John Nunn's chess puzzle book. It's not supposed to be a book that you can just take on the train and start solving puzzles. You'll go insane. You need to spend some quality time solving these puzzles. Good luck getting one of these in Puzzle Rush. Knight. Okay. I've exhausted myself after bishop d5. Maybe there's a trick that I'm missing. Knight takes first and then bishop d5 maybe. But in all those variations he can always go knight c8. Okay, I think I'm gonna settle for bishop h7 because it wins a pawn. It doesn't satisfy me though, because check, king f8, takes, rook b7, knight c8. It's definitely a good position for white. I mean, white's up material, but is that like winning on the spot? White still has to do some work to win the game. And knowing that this is Kasparov, I think that Kasparov must have found something crushing. or his opponent may have just resigned knowing it's Kasparov. So that could be also the case. Knight a7, knight a7. I don't see anything. Bishop h7, king h7, queen takes, king f8. King f8 just transposes. Okay, I'm gonna see what Kasparov did. And Gary Kasparov just played knight takes a7, knight takes, and bishop d5, and his opponent resigned. So my theory was correct that his opponent resigned knowing it was Gary Kasparov. But let's add an engine and see what the engine shows us. So I've got Stockfish running here, and knight c8 definitely the right move. Knight c6, and amazingly enough, Kasparov's move is the strongest. Knight takes a7. Bishop h7, why is that not as strong? Takes, queen e4, king g8 here, takes, yeah. Oh, the move I missed was queen d8. I thought he was gonna play king h7, and then I was looking at check here and check here and queen c8 and game over. But the move I missed was queen d8. Of course it's clearly winning. Takes, rook b8, rook d7, and it resigns, because you can probably just play rook here, king f8, rook here, trade rooks, and it's game over. No one can survive this. So I think that's not too relevant. Bishop d5, let's look at bishop d5 in this position. Well, here simply rook c8, of course. So takes, and then bishop d5. Oh wait, that's not what I saw. Bishop d5, and did I miss rook c8 simply? I think I saw rook c8, but I got confused in some line. So I think I was going for knight here, and then bishop d5. But now after rook f8, rook b7, knight c8, I just didn't see the follow-up, but the follow-up seems to be rook b8 hitting this knight. And now we can see that black is in huge trouble, because the other rook is coming in, joining the party, and that's gonna be curtains, clearly. The knight can't even move, because if it moves then white takes the rook and f7's falling. So pretty elegant and simple solution by Kasparov. He doesn't go for any complicated bishop h7 lines, he just takes here. So his opponent actually should have gone for rook c8, and after queen f5 he could have played, wow, bishop d8. My god, not seen a move like that. Bishop d8 to give the king a flight square on e7, and then Kasparov could have played queen takes e7, and it still resigns really. But quite a beautiful combination and quite some interesting tactics there. Let's look at bishop h7 as we saw. Wait, not here. Well, here I saw that takes, queen f7, and after rook f8, yes, I just didn't see anything for white, and I was right. So after knight c8, knight c6, if bishop h7, king h7, then queen e4 is correct. I was looking at knight takes, and queen takes f7, and I thought that here Black had to play queen a4, but I was wrong. He could have played queen d8 as well. And then if rook b7, then knight c8 and holds everything. Okay. So quite an interesting position. Let's look at the whole game. I'm gonna open up Kasparov's game here. I need to capture window capture properties. Okay, this is Kasparov's game. Okay, view chess media system, so I'm nicely sitting there in the dark. And let's see the whole game and see how Kasparov won this. So d4, okay, standard opening, Queen's Indian defense, bishop d2, bishop f6, castles, rook c1, nothing special here. d5, okay, takes the bishop, takes with the knight d6, knight d to e4, rook e8, queen d2, a6, b4. Wow, that's interesting. Bishop e7, okay. I don't know much about the Queen's Indian defense, but my instinct tells me that c takes b4 was probably correct, but I could be wrong. Takes, queen f4, queen c7, knight a4, queen a5. That's a waste of a move, isn't it? Queen a5 is a waste. Rook b1, bishop d5, knight b6, takes. Now he has to give up his powerful bishop, and Kasparov unleashes knight c8. So flawed tactic there from black. Let's start the engine and see what both players missed, if anything. I'm gonna put starfish down here. Okay. Castles, rook c1, c5, d5 takes. Stockfish says okay, ed5 is fine, cd5, and knight takes d2, knight takes d6. Everything looks okay here. Knight d4, rook e8, queen d2, a6, b4, great move. So bishop e7. What happens if cb4? I was completely wrong from the looks of it. Takes, and knight e4, and b4 is falling, and the whole structure is ruined. So he made a mistake when he played a6 here, apparently. Because that's loose. Should have gone bishop takes c3, traded off that bishop. Interesting. Because that gave Kasparov b4. Takes, and then queen f4, queen c7, knight a4, and queen a5 was just a bad move. Because Kasparov says thank you. Rook b1 attacks the bishop. Now he takes, but that's a flawed combination. Knight b6 takes, rook a7, and knight c8 is winning, as we saw. So great game from Garry Kasparov. I hope you enjoyed analyzing this live with me. Take care.